Good day. It's May 13, 2024. I'm Sarah Obal, and welcome to The Pulse.
And I'm Sam Buban. Welcome to this week's edition. Multiple media outlets reported that presumptive Republican nominee and former President Donald Trump and some other defendants in Georgia had tried to get Fulton County District Attorney Fani Willis and her office be removed from the 2016 election interference case, arguing that her romantic affair with Special Prosecutor Nathan Wade sparked a conflict of interest. In the trial court ruling, Superior Court Judge Scott McAfee found that there was no conflict of interest that should have the judge remove her from the case. Furthermore, he granted a request from Donald Trump and the other defendants to get an appeal on his ruling from the Georgia Court of Appeals. It seems that Donald Trump just got some good news from another legal front. This kind of move from Trump's team seems likely a delaying strategy, and this is his second time around that he got favorable ruling that could give any future trials after the November 2024 elections, since he is the presumptive nominee of the Republican Party for president. In a letter submitted to the District Attorney's Office filing, Wade wrote that his leave, effective immediately, was in the best interest of democracy and to move the case forward as quickly as possible. Trump's and others, his allies, will always find anything to delay their day in court, wrote the former Justice Department official Anthony Coley. The bottom line, he said, this November the people will decide if Trump will ever face accountability for trying to overturn the will of the voters. In his order, McAfee said he planned to continue to address other pre-trial motions, and regardless of whether the petition is granted and even any subsequent appeal is expedited by the appellate court. But Trump and the others could ask the Court of Appeals to stay the case while the appeal is pending. Prior to that, last week, a judge handling in Florida classified document case postponed the trial indefinitely. The appeal courts ordered that Trump may file a notice of appeal within the next 10 days.
The Associated Press reported that, according to the Columbus and Central Ohio Weather Radar preliminary reports, these 9 tornadoes touched down on these 4 Ohio counties by Tuesday evening last week, as the storms created havoc, lands and seas of the Midwestern region known as the Buckeye State. 2 tornadoes touched down in Mercer and Auglaize counties in western Ohio, in addition to a 3rd tornado in only Mercer County west of Coldwater. The 4th tornado was confirmed to have touched down in Darke County near Greenville. These tornadoes continue to cause damages and outbreaks across the U.S. this week, as weather forecasters already warned a series of dangerous storms, heavy rainfall, and massive hail, which could run through parts of the South early Thursday, leaving already 2 dead in Tennessee and 1 dead in South Carolina. Reports say one storm has rumbled across northeastern Tennessee on Wednesday, brought high winds that knocked down power lines and trees. Bob Brooks, the sheriff in Claiborne County, about an hour north of Knoxville, said that a 22-year-old man was in a car when he was fatally struck by one of the trees. A second victim was killed in the city of Columbia in Maury County, where the National Weather Service said likely a tornado had touched down. Columbia is just south of Nashville. As of April 22, Ohio has already had 35 confirmed tornadoes, 4 more than had been previously recorded in the first 4 months of the year. Active storm days produced 9 tornadoes on February 28, 1 on March 5th and March 14th, and tornadoes on April 2nd. The average number of tornadoes in Ohio during an entire year is 22. Ohio produced a near record number of tornadoes, about 57 in 2023. According to WCMH News, this adds to the recurring unusually large number of tornadoes happening the past years and now in Ohio. As of this time, according to the USA Today reports, more than 22,000 people in Alabama, Georgia, Missouri, Tennessee, and the Carolinas were without power. In Michigan, more than 100 families were evacuated from their homes to secure them from any threats and danger that this weather disturbance might bring. The tornado in Darke County was rated an EF1, which can produce winds up to 110 miles per hour. No details were provided on the other tornadoes.
Continuing with strange weather happening in many parts of the world and possible effect of global warming, the Oak Ridge newspaper, a Tennessee-based paper, published an article about permafrost, known in Alaska as the frozen soil, is gradually melting due to the climate change and warming in the Arctic region in a speed at pace 3 to 4 times faster than the other parts of the Earth. This, according to Bob Dalton, Deputy Operations for Next Generation of the Ecosystem Experiments in the Arctic, a project led by the Oak Ridge National Laboratory, a federally funded research and development laboratory. Based in Bolton's experiment, when the permafrost eventually melts down, the ground collapses. Erosion, landslides, and flash floods in Alaska have caused damage to houses and infrastructures, causing losses and problems accessing the basic needs of men like food, clothing, medicine, animals hunted for food, and the like, that the native Alaskans depend on. As the soil warms, microorganisms within the dead plant material break it down, releasing carbon dioxide and methane into the atmosphere. In the permafrost region in the northern hemisphere, about 2.5 times as much carbon is stored in the ground than is actually in the atmosphere right now, Bolton said. He added that the releases of these greenhouse gases from thawing permafrost could accelerate warming, triggering even more permafrost to thaw and carbon emissions in a self-reinforcing loop. Permafrost covers an area about twice the size of the United States. It is created when the tundra plants, like grasses and mosses, die. Instead of decaying and releasing organic carbon, the plant matter is frozen into the layer of soils, trapping the carbon dioxide and methane that would have been released. If this important layer in the Arctic fragments collapses, it would be a disaster. As permafrost melts, the ice is buried beneath the soil also melts. Tunnels and air pockets are created and the ground sinks into a newly empty hollow, or they call it caverns below. Meltwater and rain fill the dents, expanding them into the lakes. If hundreds of these happens at the same time, it could merge where the Arctic landscape used to be. This is bad enough, but unluckily, we are now in a positive climate feedback loop. The melting ice only increases the amounts of heat the Earth's surface absorbs, which then melts more ice. This warms the planet more. Since the beginning of the Industrial Revolution, people had been allowing increased amounts of carbon into the Earth's atmosphere. Thus, the positive feedback makes it more even higher in effect. Climate change would come fast and aggressively, while drought would be happening in some areas and others would experience floods and increase in precipitation, which is one of the 3 major parts of the global water cycle, the reason why there is rain, snow, hail, and sleet. We should all work together to prevent this climate change. This is one wake-up call that each and every human being should focus right now. We are going to take a commercial break. Please stay tuned.
Mambuhai, I am Christian Bishop, candidate for Nevada State Senate in Henderson. As a father to 3 children, family means everything to me. That's why your family means a lot to me. As a small business owner, I know what it's like to sacrifice, build, and persevere, protecting our community, investing in our future, and leading with empathy and foresight to make the right decisions for all Nevadans. In addition to being the sports, gaming, and hospitality capital of the world, let's be number 1 for healthcare and education. I'm Christian Bishop, and I approve this message. Salamat po.
Welcome back to The Pulse. According to multiple media outlets, the United States halted bomb shipments to Israel to express concern about the Rafah incursion. The United States halted a supply of bombs to Israel last week due to the concerns that Israel was about to launch a full-scale attack on the southern Gaza city of Rafah against U.S. preferences, a senior administration official said on Tuesday. According to the official, who spoke on the condition of anonymity to discuss the sensitive matter, the shipment was supposed to include 1,800 2,000-pound bombs and 1,700 500-pound bombs, with the larger explosives causing U.S. concern about how they could be used in a dense urban setting. More than 1 million residents took refuge in Rafah after fleeing other parts of Gaza following Israel's war on Hamas, which began after the Islamist group's fatal attack on Israel on October 7th. By late last week, President Joe Biden made a stern warning to Benjamin Netanyahu against a full invasion of Rafah, and that the U.S. will withhold the delivery of bombs that were used in the Gaza military campaign, a 7-month operation that left Gaza uninhabitable and killed more than 15,000 children, according to the counts by the Hamas Ministry of Health, and has also been referenced by the UN Secretary General, calling Gaza as a graveyard for children. The United States has historically contributed large amounts of military aid to Israel. This has only escalated in the aftermath of Hamas' October 7 massacre, which killed 1,200 Israelis and kidnapped 256 as hostages. The suspension of the military aid shipment is the most visible sign of the increasing chasm between Israel Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's government and President Joe Biden's administration, which has urged Israel to do far more to safeguard the lives of innocent civilians in Gaza. The United States-Israel relationship has been close under both Democratic and Republican administrations. However, there have been other instances of severe conflict since the foundation, in which U.S. authorities have threatened to withhold funds in order to pressure Israeli leadership. In 1957, during the Suez Crisis, President Dwight Eisenhower threatened Israel with sanctions if it did not withdraw from the Sinai. Ronald Reagan delayed the supply of F-16 fighter jets to Israel during a period of rising conflict in the Middle East.
A report from the Associated Press, U.S. and Philippine Marines destroyed a ship during a large-scale drills in the disputed South China Sea. U.S. and Philippine forces, backed by an Australian Air Force surveillance aircraft, launched a barrage of high-precision rockets, artillery fire, and airstrikes Wednesday last week, sinking a mock enemy ship as part of a large-scale war drills in a near-disputed South China Sea that have enraged Beijing. Military officers and diplomats from numerous countries observed the firefight from a hilltop overlooking the sandy coast in Lawag City, Ilocos Norte, the northern home province of Philippine President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. More than 16,000 military personnel from the United States and the Philippines, as well as a few hundred Australian troops and military observers from 14 nations, took part in the yearly combat readiness maneuvers known as Balikatan, which translates to shoulder to shoulder. China has enraged the Philippines by regularly harassing its Navy and Coast Guard ships with powerful water cannons a military-grade laser, blocking ship motions, and other dangerous maneuvers on the high seas near two disputed South China Sea shoals. They caused a small collision and injured several Filipino Navy troops and damaged supply boats. For the first time in years, military exercises were held in and near the hotly contested Spratly Islands, which China has heavily patrolled with Coast Guard, Navy, and suspected militia flotillas. On Monday, U.S. and Filipino Marines transported by Black Hawk helicopters practiced protecting an airstrip in Itbayat, the country's northernmost town on the Bashi Channel near southern Taiwan. A limited group of journalists, including those from the Associated Press, were invited to see the air and ground combat maneuvers. China has warned that Washington and Manila's developing security relationship, as well as continuous military drills, should not jeopardize its security and territorial interest or interfere with territorial disputes.
According to the BBC, Saharan country of Chad will vote to end military control. With Monday's presidential election, Chad will become Africa's first junta-led state to transition to democratic rule. It will bring an end to a 3-year transition enforced following the untimely death of longtime leader Idris Deby Itno while fighting rebels. However, given that his son and successor, General Mohamed Deby, is one among the favorites to win, there is significant doubt over whether this will result in change. Prime Minister Success Masra is one of his 9 adversaries and is regarded as his main competitor. The voting process has been mainly peaceful, but one 65-year-old man was shot and killed after voting in the southern city of Mandao, according to sources quoted by the Associated Free Press. Lakura Sa Ndujinang, 72, has little hope that the election will result in change, but she will nevertheless went to vote. We don't have free and credible elections in Chad because we can't imagine an electoral code preventing political party representatives from having access to the results. It does not make sense. If there's a crisis tomorrow, I won't be surprised, he told BBC. My wish is for free and transparent elections so that the people's voices are heard. Governing a country using weapons is not normal. But Ibrahim Musa Youssef was more optimistic. My wish is for free and transparent elections so that the people's voices are heard. Hope that whoever wins this vote would usher in a new period of young leadership within the country, but sadness because life has become more difficult for many over the last 3 decades. The results are likely to be published on May 21st, although a second round may be held in June if no contender receives more than 50% in the first round.
In Germany, the question of the right-wing party going into extremist. Let's take a look at a report from BBC. It is a spring evening in Cottbus, Germany, and hundreds of people have gathered in a modest venue to hear a man who once referred to himself as the friendly face of National Socialism. 2 additional males with historical links to extremist groups were present, 1 candidate for the next state elections. They have all gathered to hear Matthias Heilferich speak at a youth gathering hosted by members of the prominent far-right party Alternative für Deutschland. The AfD has often denied allegation of radicalism. Ahead of the next month's European Union election, the AfD, which is plagued by extremism and corruption charges, has dropped in polls but remaining regularly second nationwide. It is strong in Germany's post-communist communities. In leaked statements, Mr. Helferich makes many references to Nazism, including an apparent depiction of himself as the friendly face of National Socialism and Democratic Freisler, a reference to Nazi-era jurist Roland Freisler. Mr. Helferich told BBC that he was not genuinely referring to himself as the welcoming face of Nazism, but rather parodying left-wingers online. If you are constantly confronted with Nazi charges, as the AFD politicians are, you compensate for it in private. You mock it. He still holds AFD position at the local level and, as Cottbus demonstrates, is regarded as an unshamed supporter of remigration in some party circles. Stefan Kramer is concerned that Germany's political climate is heating up. Matthias Eck, the leading SPD candidate in next month's European elections, underwent surgery on Friday after being attacked while hanging up posters in Saxony. 4 teens aged 17 to 18 are being investigated, and authorities believe at least one of the accused holds extreme right-wing views. We met with the Alternative for Deutschland supporters who believe their movement isn't extremist and really represents the middle ground. This is not only about 3 individuals having a conversation in Cottbus, but about a divided Germany, about what constitutes extremism and worries of a return to its dark past. We are going to take a commercial break. When we come back, we will be joined here at Film TV Studios for an interview with Ray Kennedy, who is running for Municipal Court Judge, Department 5, Nevada. Please stay with us.
Pure Medical Equipment provides top-notch quality medical supply equipment. Whether to rent or buy, Pure Medical Equipment and Supplies has it all.
Pure Medical Equipment is committed to serve and give back to Southern Nevada.
We deliver medical supplies and rentals to your door.
Welcome back to The Pulse. With us now is lawyer and former court administrator Ray Kennedy, who is running for Municipal Court Judge for Las Vegas. Ms. Ray Kennedy, thank you so much for coming to talk to us here at The Pulse.
Thank you. It is my absolute pleasure to be here.
So, Ms. Kennedy, you are running for a Municipal Court Judge for Department 5. Please tell us about yourself and your background before we go into other questions.
Sure. So I actually used to work at municipal court as an administrator, which is why I decided to run. But I've actually been in the profession for over 25 years. I started out as a social worker. I've been a child advocate, a mediator, an educator, a civil and criminal trial attorney, and a court administrator. And so working as a court administrator, I saw that we could do better for our community, and so I decided to run.
May I address you as Ray?
Absolutely.
Ray, what kind of cases are usually handled by the Municipal Court Department 5?
So Department 5 doesn't really mean a whole lot to the public. There are 6 departments at Las Vegas Municipal Court, which simply means there are 6 judges. As the cases come in, they're randomly assigned to one of the departments. The only significance that the department holds is that each of the 6 departments does have what we call a treatment or specialty court. So Department 5 currently has a court for youthful offenders, and so if I'm elected, I would be overseeing that specialty court.
What is it in Las Vegas that motivated you to run for judge? Do you have any issues that speak to you personally, or something to do with the community or in a court system?
Absolutely. So as I mentioned, I was a court administrator. What court administrators do is they hire, train, and supervise all of the employees that work in a courthouse except the judges. Another thing that the court administrator is supposed to be able to do is to set policy for the court. So essentially the rules.
So before becoming a lawyer, you used to do social work. What aspects of the court can someone with the heart of a social worker bring to the table versus someone who is not?
So, yeah, so when I say I have a background in social work, it's not just an undergrad. I actually have a master's degree in social work.
Oh, wow.
And I decided that I actually wanted to be a social worker. Instead of going straight from graduate school to full-time law school, I worked for 5 years while I went to law school part-time in the evenings and on the weekends. Because I knew that if I went straight to law school full-time, I might understand the theories of social work, but I really would have never practiced them. And so it was important to me to get in the community and work. And so I worked for 5 years as a social worker. It took me 5 years to get my law degree.
So I'm afraid we only have a couple of minutes left for the show. So Ms. Kennedy, what would you tell our voters out there?
Well, first I would say please vote. Please vote. Our communities of color do vote, but they generally wait until the general election in November, and they don't pay quite as much attention as the primaries in June. But here in Nevada, we have a special rule. And so if you are in a primary and you get more than 50% of the vote, you win outright as a candidate. You don't have to go to the general. That's a huge incentive. So people who are listening and my message resonates with them, I'm hoping that they will use their voice, go to the ballot in June, and not wait until November. Everyone is going to get their mail-in ballot by May 22nd. It is now automatic. You don't have to ask for it. You will get it automatically. Early voting is May 25th to June 7th, and then the last day to vote is June 11th.
Well, Ray Kennedy, candidate for Municipal Court Judge in Las Vegas, Department 5. Thank you for allowing us to talk to you today. Good luck on your race.
Thank you. It's my absolute pleasure. I'm a huge fan of the Pulse and Vegas Vibes Junction.
Thank you.
And I am honored to be here. Thank you so much.
Thank you for watching. I'm Sam Buban. Please join us again next week here at The Pulse.
And I'm Sarah Obal. Thank you and God bless your week.